Henry Smith, the Conservative MP for Crawley and chair of the Future of Aviation Group, a new cross-party group of MPs fighting for the future of aviation, joins us now. Henry Smith, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, Danny.
What does this mean for Gatwick, this new quarantine rule?
Well, essentially it means a further impediment to the aviation and travel sectors being able to get back to anywhere near some semblance of normality for at least another 3 weeks, because the quarantine that's coming in today is reviewed at the earliest as a 3-weekly cycle. So it does mean that the period here in the summer that normally we'd start to be seeing the travel and aviation industry really going into the highest level of activity is further dampened. I think these measures are well intentioned, but I think they are misguided, because if you were going to introduce quarantine, it probably should have been at the beginning of the lockdown restrictions, not towards the end when most of the world is getting back to some semblance of normality.
Do you think travelling to the UK is an attractive prospect for visitors or business people at the moment?
Well, that's up to individuals to decide whether travel is something they want to undertake. You mentioned in the report that the government was saying that this was on scientific advice, but the SAGE committee, the Scientific Advisory Group on Emergencies, didn't agree with these quarantine measures because really they're not adding any public health benefit, but they are continuing to damage the ability for us to recover our economic wealth.
Have you got the ear of the Prime Minister? Is he listening to what you're saying, Henry?
Well, I mean, clearly not on this one, because I have made my case and I haven't been successful in this. But as I said, it's well intentioned, but I think it is misguided. And what I'm looking for is a very early review of these quarantine measures. So hopefully they can be lifted by the beginning of July. And the idea of air bridges or air corridors between countries that have had a like coronavirus experience is something that might help mitigate. And again, Gatwick Airport has a huge coronavirus testing facility in one of their car parks for the whole community in the sub-region. And why can't we be testing passengers coming in immediately as an alternative to quarantine? The other thing with quarantine as well is that the ability to enforce 14 days isolation, I think, is very questionable. Following up on people, I think, is perhaps fine in theory, but in reality is something that is much more difficult to do. And there are some anomalies. So, for example, you could fly to Dublin and then on to London and not have to face this quarantine at all. So it's as I say, it sounds good, but actually I think it's too late, and actually is something that will continue damage to the aviation industry, which is critical for the Gatwick area.
Thanks for now, Henry Smith.